Faster than you can think. Anyway, good to have you here today. We're talking about how to teach a Sunday school lesson. As we go through some of the training here, the 7 laws of teaching that we've been doing, we find that today is a time when we get to the lesson portion. So excited to have you on board. If this is your first time, or welcome aboard, good to have you. My name is Mike. I'm the pastor. Actually, I'm the founding pastor of the Sinclair Baptist Church. It's hard to say that. We have a new pastor now, and I am sort of retired, so I can spend more time with you on Facebook, and very excited about all of the chance to be here on YouTube and all the different training avenues that we have. But anyway, good to have you here. Welcome to our training that we have today here for Sunday school teachers. If you're just joining us for the very first time, give us a thumbs up and watch and listen, see if you like it, that type of thing. You can share it and all those kind of stuff. But you can go back and find some of the other things that we've done, and you'll see where we're coming. We are doing a lesson. We're going through the 7 laws of teachers, for teachers, kind of to help Sunday school teachers be what they need to be. And if you're a pastor watching this or church leader, these are some good things to pass on to your teachers so they can learn how to do and teach lessons. So today we're talking about how to teach the lesson. This is probably one of the most important things that we can do, is actually teaching a Sunday school lesson. Now, we have to be right in our heart. We have to have character on the inside, all sorts of different things that we need to deal with. And we have covered some of that in the past. But today we're going to be going through what we call the law of the lesson. Years ago, there was a guy that wrote a set of things called the 7 laws of teaching, and his name was John Milton Gregory. And I adjure you, I beg you, go find his book and read it. Published in 1918. Actually, there's an older version that was published in the 1800s. He wrote it for Sunday school teachers and for church workers. And then, of course, it kind of got abridged and turned into sort of a secular type of book, which has been used very widely throughout education. But it is really, he was a Christian man and was aiming towards training folks like you and I that are working with children and youth all the time. So if you're a lesson teacher, if you're someone that's up in front of somebody on a regular basis, then this is for you. Now, we're going to go through, I'm going to give you sort of the law. I'll give it to you. I'll read it for you here right out of the book. I'll give you the law, and then I want to go through and kind of give you 3 little kind of points to sort of help you fine tune that. And then I want to kind of give you the little tip at the end and the big boo-boo at the end too. The thing that we make the mistake on most of the time, happens with me all the time, probably happens to you all the time as well. So the laws here, let me read this right off the screen here. The lesson to be mastered must be explained in the terms of truth that are already known by the learner. In other words, and here's kind of the phrase that you can remember, we need to move from the known to the unknown. In other words, you start with something that the child understands, or the person you're teaching, they understand, and you move to something that is new. That is why we teach. If you're a homeschooler or you're involved in your children's education, that's why you teach addition, and then you move to multiplication. So you would be teaching your kid, 5 plus 5, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3. You'd be going through and, giving some good repetition there. Then you're going to do, like with 5s, you would do, let's now do 5 plus 5 plus 5. And you'd have 3 of them. And at first they'd kind of like, whoa, but if you've already got 2 of them, now you add another one, you're moving from something they already know into something a little bit less curious or a little bit less familiar. And I'll give you those steps in just a second. And then you would say, and we're also going to kind of change the sign from a plus sign to the multiplication sign. And you'd move from something that they've got a good handle on to something that they don't have a handle on. If you're teaching geography, you would probably show a large, say you're doing like Africa, for example, you would show a large picture of the world, and a kid, depending on the age, probably familiar with the concept of the world. Then you would go to Africa and show them, and then you would zoom down and go, this is, Kenya. But you wouldn't start out with an outline of Kenya on a screen or a map. They wouldn't have no place to plug that in. And this is the idea that when we're teaching a lesson, no matter what you're teaching, if you're using pre-done curriculum or for whatever you're using, you need to move from where they are to where they need to be. But you start with the known and you move from there. Now, in my notes here, I kind of started out with kind of one of an error thing that we kind of sometimes do is teachers write lessons. And many times, if you're dealing with a curriculum that is presented to you, as many Sunday school teachers are, you have a curriculum that was written by a person that writes curriculum for a living. In other words, they're a professional teacher. They're professionally smart. I mean, they know the whole, if it's like something on the Old Testament or the judges or all those kings or whatever, they know all those kings in order. They can figure them all out. This one was Israel. This one was Judah. This one was 500 BC. This one was 800 BC. You know, they know all that. But if you are teaching young people new stuff, they may not have any of that down pat. And here's kind of one of the problems that we have is that teachers write lessons and children and learners learn lessons. And we need to flip that on its head a little bit. And remember, learners learn lessons is the first thing, and teachers teach. So we need to teach what they need to learn. We don't need to teach what we need to get through. Okay, if you've ever been in a college class and you had a professor that was a couple days late on stuff, and he said, "Hey, all right, we're going to really go fast today," because he's trying to finish a scope and a sequence or make it through a syllabus or a curriculum, and you're taking notes as fast as you can. You're trying to figure out what's going on, and he is no longer concerned about the learner. He's concerned about himself as the teacher. Very important for us to make sure that we focus on the student, know that we are teaching the student, and that we're not just blowing past them. So if you want to teach Sunday school, if you are wanting to be a lesson teacher, okay, and you're going to give things, you need to know your student. Okay, we'll get to that at the very end. So let me give you these things that I wrote down. This is kind of sort of simplified from the 1888 version of this, and this is the idea that we are moving a student from a place of knowledge to, and we're taking them to a new place of non-knowledge. In other words, we're taking them where they don't know they're going. We're taking them to something they don't know about. But there is a movement of this person. In preaching, we call it taking them from A to B. In other words, you're developing, you're maturing somebody. You're taking them along a path. And with teachers, you are taking them from what they know to something out here that is unknown. And that unknown, we need to treat that like treasure. We need to treat that like just amazing stuff that they've not found, like gold. In other words, we're walking along the mountains, and underneath here somewhere are golden nuggets, okay? And we're going to find those nuggets, and we're going to discover those, and we're going to have those revealed to us. And that is the idea that you are moving them somewhere. It is not that you are getting through your lesson. It's that you are taking them from A to B. The second part of this that I want you to grab hold of is as you take them, there are steps, there are logical steps to kind of take that person up there. And we need to know what those are. So the bottom step would be the step of just like solid knowledge. Like if a child knows addition, okay, we'll kind of go back to the math example. If they know addition, you would go through and make sure they know it well, all right? So they know addition, and then you're going to take them to the next step, which would be something that we would call that they kind of be familiar with, but they don't have it real down pat. And so when you're teaching lessons, when you're moving somebody, you're moving them from a place of solidness. So what this means is in the steps across your, say 30 minutes of teaching, the beginning of your teaching needs to have a level of review and some assessment where you kind of find out where they are if you don't already know. And you are really kind of, laying that groundwork again and getting them down pat. Remember now that David was raised over in this area called Israel, and here's a map of Israel. Remember we talked about this. He lived right about there, okay? And Jesus was born right about there too. Remember at Christmas we do Jesus, and yeah, they're kind of grabbing hold of some familiar things. So you would show them. Then you would move down into something that is, somewhat familiar, but not really, they don't really have it. In other words, you're talking about David like in his town of Bethlehem or whatever. Then you start to move to the areas where they don't really know much. It's just like it's sort of that level of curiosity. It reminds me of like when you're taking up steps and you're walking up a mountain and you want to get to the top, and as you get closer, when you're at the bottom, I've done a lot of mountain climbing and backpacking, and at the bottom, it's like I know when I get to the top, I'm gonna be able to see something pretty cool. Okay. But when you start getting up towards the top, and I mean you are now like a minute, or you are now 20 or 30 steps from cresting the top, the curiosity level and kind of the anxiousness, the anticipation level is very high. And folks, this is a teacher's dream. This is right there where you can really milk that time. And like, we're going to show you what happened. You're going to be able to see in just a moment. I remember once I was hiking with a guy, and I was very cold, very tired. We were hiking on snow. It's a winter ascent. He got very wet, and we were really close to the top. And he just he was totally fatigued. He said, I'm done. I can't go any further. Well, I went up to the top, like, another 100 yards, got to the top. And I turned around, hollered at him. His name was Curtis. I said, Curtis, you gotta come. You gotta come. And I went back down there and like started dragging him up, and finally got a little motivation, and he made it to the top. And of course it was worth it all, because now he was in that, that seeing the unknown. It's discovery. It's like something you've never seen before. And folks, those are the steps in a lesson. And when you get to the top, well, that's like I say, that's the great stuff. You get to really do some great teaching right at that moment. And then you get to reveal to them the unknown, but it's all linked back from where it came. And so it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You move them from A to B, you proceed through these steps. And then at each one of these steps, remember, the review part can be mundane. I remember my children, we taught them homeschooled, and we did a lot of what's called Saxon math. And in Saxon math, there's like 100 math problems, and the first 30 of them are just exactly what they did the lesson before. And then the next, 10 or 15 are kind of like sort of what they did before, but a little bit more. And then when you get to the last few, exercises that you do, it's like now you're kind of being challenged. In other words, there's that review process, and it can be boring. And if you're not careful, will go through it too fast. But you need to lay that groundwork so they know where they're at, and they know where they're at, and you move from the known to the unknown. So you move from A to B, you proceed by steps there. That is such an important thing. Now, I was reading through, and I've got this on the computer. I don't think I can bring this up here for you, because that probably wouldn't work here. But I was reading through Milton's book here today, and he had just a really good point. It says, make every advance clear and familiar, else the next step may be from the known to the unknown. In other words, you don't want to go from the unknown to the unknown. You don't want to go unknown to unknown to unknown. In other words, you've got to make it clear and familiar. So this is the idea of review, and kind of going back down and then coming back up, and then you go back down a little, and then you come back up, and you go back down a little, and come back up. And again, in your lessons plans, you might have to put a big R there for review, a little arrow to go back. Lots of times I'll draw an arrow, go back to where I was, and I'll reference that, and then I'll come back down and start working into some of the unknown there. But powerful, powerful stuff. So all of this is the fourth law, and it is the law of actually teaching a lesson. So whether you're teaching through, the book of Revelation or whatever it happens to be, or you're teaching just the simplest little thing to a set of 4-year-olds, you move from the known to the unknown. Now, let me give you one of the keys, and I've said this word over and over and over, and it is the idea of assessing and knowing where they're at. And there are many ways to do this. And as a teacher, at the very beginning of your lesson, you need to go back through some of that, and you need to make sure that you are repeating some of the points you've done before, but you are doing assessment type of things. And that is the asking of questions, where you are saying, now, what did we learn about David last year or last week? Who remembers, David? Okay. And someone said, well, he had sheep, or he was a king, or, he lived in Bethlehem, or, you start to do that. Then if someone said Bethlehem, you'd maybe show a map. It's like, okay, so here is Bethlehem. Remember, here's Israel. Actually, here's the world. We're way over here, and here's Bethlehem, Israel over here, and here's where David was, and here's Bethlehem. You just kind of go right back through some of that, but you have to assess where they are, because you can't take them further than where they are. You have to remember that assessment and understanding your crowd is super, super important. So that is one of the things you do. You do a lot of asking and find out kind of where that they would be. So there are the review questions can be done. We've talked about review games and a lot of different things. So make sure that you are doing a review and helping people out in that regard. And the boo-boo that we make here, okay, the bad thing that we do, and let me just say this and then we'll be finished, is that we sometimes go too fast. We teach too fast. And you look at your watch and you go, oh man, I gotta go. And you go, you're talking about 100 miles an hour because you have got like that much page left or that many notes left, and you're flipping through and you're doing way, way too much too fast. Remember, it's not about you. It's about the student. The lesson needs to conform to the student, what they need to learn, and you cannot go too fast. It would be much better to take your time in a Sunday school situation. Now, I understand that there are like survey classes and things like that. They'll be a little bit different. But in a typical lesson, you want to make sure that you slow things down. You spend time really going through with them the lesson that they need to learn based on where they are, and help them to discover a brand new nugget and get a brand new view of something they've never seen before. So anyway, that is our lesson for today, how to teach a Sunday school lesson. And it's just real simple. It comes from law number 4 of the name of the book again is The 7 Laws of Teaching by John Milton Gregory. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it wherever books are sold. You'll be able to find that book. It's very popular teacher's guide. So thank you for being with us here today. Again, if this has been good for you, hit the like button there. I appreciate those that do hit the like button. We get a lot of likes, and I appreciate that. Also get a lot of shares. And if you are watching this for the very first time, we have much more of this. And one of the best ways to really get that, at least what I do, is I subscribe on YouTube to quite a few different things that I like to listen to and watch and kind of things. And it will then be right there on your homepage at YouTube, or you can get a notification from it. There's some ways you can set that up. I don't actually do some of that, the setup for notifications, but make sure that you do take time to subscribe. I appreciate that very much. So if you missed it, I'm Mike Holmes from Sinclair, Wyoming is where we're broadcasting from here. And we are at the Reachkeep.com website. You can go there. We've got a lot of good training coming up. In fact, we have some training, very specific type of training coming. And if you like more of this for your teachers or for yourself as a church leader, you can go to reachkeepconference.com. It's just our website there that deals with our conference training, and we'll be getting to you and teaching you more about that. So anyway, for now, thank you so much for being with us. Make sure that you serve the Lord with gladness and enter into his gates with thanksgiving. God bless you. Have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week, same time.